Well, thanks everyone for joining us in another Pressing In, where our goal and our hope and our desire is to take what we talk about on a Sunday morning, press in a little bit more, wrestle with it a little bit more, and help apply it to our lives through kind of a roundtable discussion with other leaders around here at Blue Ridge so that we can apply it to our lives practically Monday through Saturday. I want to really start, Dave, with you. You gave the talk this Sunday, and would you just sum up for us in a couple sentences or a short paragraph, really what you wanted people to take away from this last Sunday?
Yeah, I guess the thing that God is impressing upon me, and I think impressing upon us, is that this idea that God has always created spaces for people to connect with him. He's very intentional about that, and that the space that he's creating right now for people to connect with him isn't a physical place that we go to. And we have all these ideas of church. A lot of us that grew up around church being a place I go to or what I attend. And what he's saying, no, the place that I have, the temple that I have for people to connect with him, I'm going to distribute it. It's going to be living. I'm going to go to them instead of just waiting for them to come to me.
Yeah, I loved listening to your talk from the perspective of God shifting the attention from being that place that I go to a people that were becoming and being in the community. And I really do think, like Woody talked about last week, this whole idea that there's an opportunity in this season for us to do that. But we all know, as Dave started the talk, it was immediately where I'm at, because so many places in my life have dramatically changed over the last several weeks, obviously, and it's true for you guys too. So with that in mind, what places have most changed for you? What place has significantly changed for you, and how is it affecting you emotionally? Like how is all that working right now for you guys? Andy?
By far, my house. Like, you guys, I worked from home, and I know that people disagree, but I am an introvert through and through. Suddenly, I have my husband working at home and these 3 kids, and so talk about a game changer. I have no quiet time, and it's totally changed how I do my day in my own house.
How is that affecting you emotionally? How has that played out in your everyday life so far in this first maybe couple of weeks?
Well, I think it's tricky because it's too easy for me to settle into my house as if this is a snow day. Do you know what I mean? Okay. And be like, it's a freebie. We get to just throw it into neutral, but I'm not looking at the long term and thinking about that. And so for me, that's how it's affecting, I think, our house emotionally, is kind of being more lackadaisical than I would want to be.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've heard a lot of people referring to it right now. They don't know how to get out of that snow day feel when they're in their home for that long period of time with everyone along that way. So what about you guys, Hutch?
Well, in some ways, nothing has changed. In other ways, everything has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing has changed in that I work in Bedford's ER, so I'm still working in the ER. Nothing has changed as far as my students, as far as preparing them for boards, but we're not meeting in a classroom situation. So I'm trying to encourage them and talk to them about getting ready for boards whenever we're going to take that. Everything has changed as far as home, because Linda's at home now. So both of us are home more than we normally are. So again, a lot of things have changed, but both of us still have jobs, and we're still working. And actually, I'm probably working harder now at school stuff than I was if we did have school, because we got to do all the online stuff and communication and all that.
Working out in the real world, those kind of things, which I don't, the 3 of you do, kind of idea. How are you seeing these places affect other people emotionally?
We just do what we do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't, it's not New York, obviously, Bedford, but we continue to protect ourselves, continue to do the things we do every day. So we just continue to take care of patients. Yeah. It's just another day at the office, so to speak. Right now, again, it hasn't hit here, so that could change at any moment.
Yeah. What about you, Dave? You're a part of the leadership of a fairly significantly sized company. How are you seeing it affect people? How is it? Let's start with the place. Where are the places in your own life that you're seeing change?
Yeah, I mean, we're empty nesters, so we don't have the snow day. We don't have all that stuff, Deb and I. So probably home hasn't changed as much, except that I'm home more. We're construction, so we're called essential. So a lot of our guys out there are in the field, but there's a lot of anxiety. I'm trying to figure out how to connect with my team. I've never tried to work from home. I've been in an office even when I worked here. I was at, Jeremy would tell you, I would normally show up because that's how I connect and I like that space, and now I'm not. And so it's made me kind of reformulate everything. But really, how do we lead our people? How do I stay connected? Because normally my people are an office away or 2 or 3 offices away, and I would see them throughout the day. And now I got to be a lot more intentional about those connections and how do we do it over video conferencing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's really how do we help a lot of our people that are in the field that really can't work from home, but they have family that are immune compromised or high risk, and how do we care for them well, and then how do we still meet our obligations? And yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
What about for you, Jeremy?
As Dave was talking about this place, obviously it's not lost on any of us or anybody watching right now that we're sitting in a giant empty atrium on this deal, and that there's a bunch of offices around us with the lights out, hallways, lights are all off and things like that. So I am definitely the extrovert. I am a people person and want to connect with people. These physical places like these, these large gatherings, is where I feel the most lost in this season. I actually, true story, first day that I was working from home, because we've transitioned to working from home, about 2/3 of the way through the day, I finally was like, I got to go buy a storm door because I needed to be open to the world. I wanted to leave my door open and have as much facing out as I could.
On the first day.
The first day working from home, I installed a storm door that Jan and I had been talking about installing for 10 years since we've moved into this place. I did that the first day. So really, and I'm finding that while virtual spaces are great, like Zoom and things like that, these environments that would energize me, now I'm leaving exhausted. I think it's really more just about not being there with people. It's you have that screen between you, and so I find myself way more exhausted. So with these spaces changing, obviously, Dave, one of the main points of your talk from this last Sunday was this opportunity that we now have, where the word go to church is a phrase we've used over and over again, and we've tried to reframe that into, no, we are the church, we are the church, we are the church. But I really do believe, and I think we all believe, in a new and fresh way, God is giving us an opportunity, like Woody talked about last week, to go and be the church. And Dave, I thought your whole idea of that we are the temple, that this new way of operating out of that identity, and temples were meant to connect people to God. So as the church, if God's Spirit lives inside of me, that I get to be the temple in this new reality. I don't have to rely on a space to connect with God or to help other people connect with God. So here's a question I have for you guys. Twofold. How are you seeing this happen in your sphere? As you're watching and observing people, how are you seeing this happen? And where do you think the danger zones are for us as the church to miss this opportunity?
For us, I was fortunate enough that we've got like 5 groups that I work with in Bedford. And so what I've done is I'm connecting with the leaders, and the leaders are then connecting with the people that are in their groups, the Zoom or calling or texting or emailing or whatever. So I've been able to, for lack of a better word, multiply myself by 5 by having my leaders follow up with those people, and then I just follow up with the leaders. So it's been kind of neat to see that happen and see how that has been able to empower them to take care of their people.
I love that word, empowering. I definitely think that that's an opportunity that we have that maybe we haven't taken advantage of in the past, is that empowering people to see themselves differently rather than rely on, the Andys or the Daves or someone else to do this work for them, that we get to empower one another to be that. Andy, how are you seeing this work well? Or where are you seeing glimpses of this?
So, yeah, it's been interesting. To me, I can't get over the fact this week how many conversations I'm having specific to women, job loss or significant job reductions for the husband who's the primary breadwinner. And here's the thing though, I only know about those because I'm reaching out, or somebody with me is reaching out to specific women or previous groups that really had a choice to make. Do we go from meeting face to face once a week, which was our routine for a long time, and now take the annoying step to figure out technology like the Zoom to make it still happen. And here's the thing, if we didn't take those steps to intentionally reach out, we would not know the actual situation that's pretty dire, and it just feels hopeless. It feels so scary. And so what I think has worked really well this week is that people are, I hope, taking the step to actually connect with people, at least voices and faces, if it can't be face-to-face, because man, that is where, in my experience this week, the Spirit of God is moving, because then we hear what's really happening and we're like, we've got to pray for you guys. Like, that's huge. And then she's like, I wasn't going to get on this because I didn't want to feel obligated to feel happy when I'm kind of freaking out. And we're like, there is no obligation to feel a specific way, because we're talking about, God, you come just as you are. And I think about, man, talk about the potential for missed opportunities to just love and minister to one another if a few of us hadn't taken some initiative with that.
What do you see?
It takes intentionality. I mean, it really does intentionality, because I'm a natural introvert. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, okay, good, less people in my life. That's a good thing, right? But I start to ask the question, what if we never met again? What would happen to the church? Would it move? And history tells us that in, societies where the church does go underground, where the church does meet from home to home, it actually explodes in authentic faith. And so I'm kind of asking, okay, God, what does this look like in me? And trying to have that filter, because I don't want to just dwell on fixing the problem or solving the thing. If we're going to be the church, if we're going to be the temple, it's going to take a mindset shift in a lot of us to do that.
Yeah, I know that one of the places I'm seeing it play out in my own sphere, we have staff prayer at 9, 12, and 4, and we've done it for years now. And it can easily become a list, because we were intentionally, what we do is we'd pray for the things happening around the building that night. And it's hard to breathe new life into it. What I'm experiencing now, even though we're still doing this through Zoom, what I'm experiencing now is people being vulnerable about what they feel in that moment, about where they're at, about who in their life is going through something. And I'm finding in some of the prayer times a much more natural place to connect with people and connect with God through those prayers, that now everybody's in this together. Everybody's experiencing this. All families are going through some level of disruption because of this. And so it's bringing a natural part of that conversation. Where do you guys think we could miss the boat, though? Dave, you mentioned intentionality.
Yeah, I mean, if we looked at kind of using your snow day analogy, okay, well, it's just time off just to check out and go do me. Spend all my time on Netflix or projects or whatever, instead of being aware there's a bigger thing, or focusing on the scarcity that I have to go through this, instead of, okay, I get to be part of what God is doing here. That's where I think, for me, I want to make sure I don't miss, whether it's interaction in the home, interaction with my team, interaction with my neighbors, all of that stuff. Because my tendency is to look at life like, okay, now I can use it to go work on something. I think I could easily weather it and get through it, because my job hasn't been affected too much.
Yeah, I think that bunker mentality, that could easily take over, because a lot of the messages, and we get it, actually they want us to change the verbiage, right, from social distancing to physical distancing. But we're being told to be responsible, and I get that physical distancing, but that can create just this bunker mentality where it's like, okay, just bunker it down. And when there really is a battle that we can engage with in healthy ways with people to be the church differently with intentionality. But it's going to take some stepping out and some places where, when I feel exhausted, because I feel exhausted at the end of my day, choosing to go, okay, who do I need to reach out to still? Who do I need to connect with still? God, who are you putting on my mind still? What about you, Andy?
So 2 weeks ago, at the end of the talk, you said, so, hey, let's do some watch parties, and that's sort of how we will be the church and living. Who can you invite? And for me, I was like, okay, that's what we'll do. Well, maybe it was the next day or 2 days later that we had regulations come down the pike of 10 or more and this kind of thing. And so I was like, oh man, well, there goes that. So here's what that exposed in me, and I really don't like it, is this thing that I'm relying on my spiritual leaders to tell me, Andy, here's what to do. Here's what successful discipleship looks like. Have watch parties. And I was like, okay, my family will totally host watch parties. Now what that's done is expose this thing in me of, I don't take this with a grain of salt or find the gray in this. I don't know that God only calls us to obey and carry out what our spiritual authorities tell us to do. Instead, the Spirit of God takes that in conjunction with He's doing in me. And so now it's more recently in the last maybe 4 or 5 days, creating this question of, God, what does it look like for me to think outside of the box in order to be fully on mission with my family? Because that's who I've got. And it's a little uncomfortable because frankly, I'd rather follow the recipe of discipleship.
Yeah, it's interesting for me that when I think of the major moves I've seen around Blue Ridge, the biggest places where I've seen God move were not, and this is just honestly, didn't come from leadership. They were not the ideas of leadership. They were people that listened to that urging, that nudging of the Spirit of God. They had a burden for a people group, a burden for people going through something, and they responded. Though that's where I've seen God move the most in my years here.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree 100%. That's what and I love sitting back on a baptism Sunday, and part of the most meaningful thing is watching other people that aren't on staff, people that aren't the quote unquote ministry leader, baptizing friends and family and watching these dreams and visions that God puts inside of somebody to be that place that connects someone else to God kind of idea, to see that lived out in a really practical way.
I think for me, one of the things where I guess I'm most concerned is in Bedford. Like if you're in a serving group, I know that we're doing the Care and Connect through serving because we have emails, we have phone numbers. If you're in children's ministry, if you're in one of the life groups, what about all the people who come here to New London and Bedford who we don't even know? Yeah. We don't know who those people are because they're not involved. So how do we follow up with those people? Are those people just going to fall through the cracks? Possibly, because we don't have any way of connecting them. So hopefully the people who are connected will somehow get connected to those people who are not connected, and then we can follow through with that. But that would be a concern of mine, is that the people that aren't connected would just fall through the cracks because we don't know who they are.
Yeah, I would agree 100% as we wrap this up, because I think that's why what Dave talked about is so important for this time. Because there is no way for the 4 of us, or even 40 staff members at Blue Ridge, or even 200 leaders at Blue Ridge leading ministries, to connect with and help connect all the people that just would have walked through these doors on a regular Sunday morning. It's going to take the entire body, the entire temple, each one of us who has His Spirit inside of us, living this out and asking God for those opportunities. And so that's been a practice of mine in this, is asking God, who is it you want me to text today? And just ask a simple question. This has been my question here this week. How can I pray for you today? I know it's simple. I know it feels maybe overly religious at times, but I really do believe, okay, right now I can't go and give them a hug. I can't go and even shake their hand, but I can say, God, these are the people you're bringing to my mind. I'm going to text them, reach out to them, and call them and see how I can connect them to God through prayer. I want to read this, and this is where I want to finish up. Dave, you read this passage on Sunday. It said, "Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst?" If we could grab hold of, I think, that as a church, that God's Spirit is inside of each one of us, giving us everything we need in this season to be the church, I believe we can come out on the other side of this with stories and encounters with Jesus that we couldn't have imagined if we just kept on doing church the same way. Hutch, would you mind praying for everybody listening out there, that they would go and be the church?
Sure.
Yeah.
Jesus, thank you for today. And we know that everybody is a bit of turmoil, anxiety. This stuff is real. So I just pray that for those of us that have a relationship with you, that we would go out and we would be the church, that we would represent you, that we would go out and we would be able to share with people that you are the perfect controller of all things, and you've got this. At some point, our faith has to take care of some of that anxiety, some of that stress that we feel. So I just pray that as we represent you, that you would give us opportunities to share you with people out there who don't know you, and that those of us who have a relationship with you, that we would encourage and challenge each other. And for some of those who aren't connected, I pray that we would be able to get connected with them somehow, whether that's through phone calls or texts or emails or whatever, that we would be able to connect and care for each other in this time. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Awesome, guys. Thanks.